the living world. I mean, it just has this way of stopping you in your tracks, doesn't it? You see a horse galloping, just pure power, or you think about those tiny molecular machines inside our cells. It's all incredible. And it always brings up that big question, what is life? Now, that question has, a philosophical angle, but for this deep dive, we're sticking to the science. How do scientists tell living from non-living? And maybe even more relevant today, how do we even begin to grasp the sheer scale of life's diversity? Because when you look at the numbers, it's kind of mind-boggling. We're talking, 1.7, maybe 1.8 million known species described so far. And the amazing part is new organisms pop up constantly, even places we think we know well, like your own backyard, maybe new insects or microbes in the soil.
Right. And to handle that massive, ever-growing amount of information, humanity's had to get clever. We've developed some really ingenious systems over time. So our mission today is really to unpack those systems, not just what they are, but how they evolved historically, the scientific thinking behind how biologists actually identify, name, and then, classify all these life forms. It's essentially how we've built this enormous library of life and how we keep adding to it.
Exactly. So get ready for a journey with us. We'll go from that sort of primal human awe right through to the complex scientific frameworks we use now, frameworks that reveal just how interconnected everything living really is. If you think back, way back to early human history, it seems pretty obvious they could tell the difference between, say, a rock and a deer, something inanimate versus something alive. In fact, some natural things, animals, plants, even mountains or rivers, were so powerful or important, they were often seen as gods, right? There was this baseline of awe, maybe sometimes fear.
And what's interesting is that for a long time, many societies had a very human-centered view of the world. Anthropocentric, we call it. Their focus was almost totally on how other living things related to them. What could they eat? What could they wear? What could they build with? And while that's practical, it actually limited how much broader biological knowledge they gathered.
Right. It wasn't until basic necessity kicked in the need to manage resources, maybe avoid poisons, that drove people to start describing life more systematically. That pressure led straight to the detailed systems we need for, identification, then nomenclature, giving things proper names, and of course, classification, grouping them.
And the really big insight, the kind of intellectual spin-off from all that early work, was spotting the shared similarities between living things. You could see it horizontally, like comparing a cat and a dog today, but also vertically, connecting creatures alive now with things that lived ages ago. This realization that all life today is related, and related to everything that ever lived. Well, it wasn't just science. It was actually quite humbling for humanity. It even arguably fueled some cultural shifts towards, valuing biodiversity and conservation. It changed our perspective on our place in it all.
So, okay, picture the problem. Millions of plants, millions of animals out there, and each one might have loads of different local names. Imagine trying to talk about a specific plant if people in the next valley, let alone another country, call it something completely different. Total chaos for science, right?
You've nailed it. That's exactly why a standardized naming system became absolutely critical. We needed one name for each organism recognized everywhere, and that process, as you said, is nomenclature. It's the universal language that lets biologists across the globe actually communicate and build on each other's work.
And it's important to stress, this naming, this nomenclature, it really only works if you've done the identification first. You have to accurately describe the thing, figure out its key features before you can confidently stick that official global name on it. You can't just guess.
Precisely. Description comes first. And to make sure everyone's on the same page, scientists set up these universally agreed upon rules. For plants, the rules are in the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, the ICBN. For animals, it's the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, the ICZN. These codes ensure that each scientific name is unique and applied correctly based on solid evidence, often tied to a specific type specimen held in a museum or herbarium somewhere.
Which leads us nicely to a really key development, binomial nomenclature. This two-part naming system, championed by Carolus Linnaeus, was genuinely revolutionary. Its elegance and practicality mean it's still the standard we use everywhere today, but how does it actually work, these two names?
It's surprisingly simple, really. Each scientific name has two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. Think of it like a surname and a given name, but for a species. Let's use the mango example. Mangifera indica. So Mangifera is the genus, that's the broader group it belongs to.
Okay, like the surname.
Exactly. And indica is the specific epithet telling you which particular species within that genus it is. And there are strict rules for writing these. First, they're generally Latin or treated as Latin and always written in italics in print.
Right, italics, or underlined if you're writing by hand.
Yes, underlined separately if handwritten. Second rule. The genus name, the first word, always starts with a capital letter, but the specific epithet, the second word, starts with a lowercase letter. Always. Even if it's derived from a proper noun.
Got it. Capital genus, lowercase species.
And the final piece, often you'll see an abbreviated name after the specific epithet, like Lin for Linnaeus. That tells you who first formally described that species according to these rules.
So these little details are actually what makes the whole system work globally. Consistency is key.
Absolutely. It removes ambiguity.
Okay, so we have this universal naming system, but with millions of named species,
Yeah.
how do you organize them? You can't just have a giant list. That's where classification comes in, right?
Yes.
Grouping things into useful categories based on characters you can actually observe.
Exactly. And we do this intuitively all the time, don't we? We talk about plants, animals, dogs, cats, wheat. We automatically group them based on shared features. The scientific term for these groups, these categories, is taxa. That's the plural. The singular is taxon.
And a taxon can be, well, really broad or really specific, like animals is a taxon, but so is dogs. Or plants is a taxon, and wheat is also a taxon within plants.
You can see there's a kind of structure there already, levels. That structure, that hierarchy is fundamental. And the whole process of figuring out these groups and how they relate is called taxonomy. Modern taxonomy isn't just about looking at things anymore. It digs much deeper internal structure, how cells are built, how organisms develop, their ecology, even their genetics now. So the basic steps in taxonomy are characterize the organism thoroughly, identify it correctly, classify it into the right groups, and give it the proper name using nomenclature.
And historically, as we mentioned earlier, the first classifications were purely practical. What's useful? Food, shelter, clothing.
Right. Early humans grouped things by use. But later, people got interested in more than just utility. They wanted to understand the relationships between different kinds of organisms. This broader field, looking at the diversity in the relationships, is called systematics. The word comes from Latin, systema, meaning systematic arrangement. Linnaeus actually used Systema Naturae as the title for his big publication laying out his system. Initially, systematics covered identification, naming, and classifying. But crucially, it expanded to include evolutionary relationships. That's the big difference from early taxonomy. It's fascinating how our views shifted from just how can we use this to how is this connected to everything else through evolutionary history. It connects life across vast stretches of time.
So once we start classifying, it's not just one step. Biologists use this tiered system, a hierarchy of ranks or categories. All these categories together, from the most specific to the most general, make up the taxonomic hierarchy. It's like nested boxes.
And the big question is, how do you decide where an organism fits in this hierarchy? Well, it all comes down to knowing its characteristics. You look for similarities and differences with other groups at each level. Let's walk through the main ranks, usually starting from the most specific and going up. And remember the key principle. As you go up the hierarchy, the groups get broader, and the members share fewer characteristics in common. Okay, the base level is species. This is generally seen as the fundamental unit. It's a group of individuals that are very similar, can potentially interbreed, and are distinct from other such groups. Think Homo sapiens us, or Mangifera indica the mango, or Solanum tuberosum the potato, Panthera leo the lion.
And you mentioned Panthera before, that genus has multiple species, right?
Okay.
Lion, leopard, tiger.
Exactly. So Panthera is the next level up. Genus. A genus groups together related species. Species within the same genus share more characters than they do with species in different genera. So lion, P. leo, leopard, P. pardus, and tiger, P. tigris, are all in the genus Panthera. And Panthera is clearly different from, say, Felis, the genus that includes the domestic cat.
Okay, species, then genus. What's next?
Next is family. A family groups related genera. Now, the similarities are becoming fewer, more general. Families are often defined by a combination of features, maybe both vegetative and reproductive traits in plants. For example, the plant genera Solanum, potato, brinjal, petunia, and datura are all put together in the family Solanaceae. For the cats, the genus Panthera, big cats, and Felis, small cats, are grouped into the family Felidae.
So related genera make a family. Keep going up.
Above family, we have order. An order brings together related families based on even broader aggregated characteristics. Similarities are fewer still. For instance, the plant families Convolvulaceae and Solanaceae are put in the order Polymoniales, based mainly on floral characters. And the animal families Felidae, cats, and Canidae dogs are grouped together in the order Carnivora.
Carnivores, okay. Makes sense. After order.
Class. A class groups related orders. For example, order Primata, monkeys, apes, humans, and order Carnivora, cats, dogs, bears, are both placed in the class Mammalia. They share features like having hair and mammary glands.
Mammals.
Right.
Getting broader.
Very broad. Next up is phylum. That's the term used for animals. For plants and fungi, the equivalent rank is often called division. A phylum groups classes with very fundamental shared characteristics. For example, all the classes like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals are grouped in the phylum Chordata. What unites them? Things like having a notochord at some stage and a dorsal hollow nerve cord. Very basic body plan features.
Okay, phylum Chordata. Nearly at the top.
Almost. The highest, most inclusive rank is kingdom. Historically, the two main kingdoms recognized were Animalia, all animals, and Plantae, all plants. So all the animal phyla fall under kingdom Animalia. All the plant divisions fall under kingdom Plantae. Of course, we now recognize other kingdoms like fungi, protista, and monera, bacteria, but Animalia and Plantae are the classic examples.
So let's recap that key principle as you climb this ladder, from species up to kingdom. The higher you go, the fewer characteristics the members of that taxon share in common. Is that right?
That's exactly it. Lower levels, like species and genus, group organisms with many specific similarities. Higher levels, like kingdom and phylum, group them based on very broad fundamental traits. If you look at a table comparing, say, a human, a housefly, a mango tree, and a wheat plant, you can see this clearly. Human and housefly are both in kingdom Animalia. Mango and wheat are in kingdom Plantae. But go down to class, and humans are Mammalia, houseflies are Insecta. The shared features decrease dramatically as you ascend. It visually lays out that hierarchical structure.
Now, building this whole system, understanding the why behind it, especially the evolutionary connections, took some brilliant minds. And one name that really stands out in the 20th century is Ernst Mayr. He's often called the Darwin of the 20th century. Born in Germany in 1904 and had an incredibly long and influential career, almost 80 years of it focused on evolution.
Oh, absolutely monumental. Mayr's impact was enormous. You could argue he almost single-handedly shifted the focus of evolutionary biology squarely onto the origin of species diversity. Why are there so many different kinds of life? That became the central question, thanks in large part to him. And maybe even more importantly, he developed the modern biological species concept, defining a species not just by how it looks, but by whether populations can actually interbreed. That was a game changer for both taxonomy and evolutionary theory.
He spent a huge part of his career at Harvard after joining in 1953 and just kept publishing influential work. His contributions were so significant he received what people call the Triple Crown of Biology Awards, the Balzan Prize, the International Prize for Biology, and the Crayford Prize. Quite the achievement.
It really is. And he lived to be 100 years old, passing away only in 2004.
So when we think about the systems we've just discussed, nomenclature, classification, the hierarchy Mayr's work really highlights the deep thinking and scientific rigor that went into making sense of it all.
Exactly. It wasn't just about sorting and labeling. It was about understanding the processes that generated all this diversity in the first place. People like Mayr provided the intellectual framework that allows us to really comprehend life's complexity.
Well, there you have it. We've taken quite the journey, haven't we? From that initial, almost instinctive human need to categorize the living world through the development of essential tools like nomenclature and taxonomy, all the way to the sophisticated hierarchical system biologists use constantly to organize and understand the millions of species sharing our planet.
And it's crucial to remember these systems aren't just academic exercises. They are incredibly practical. Think agriculture, forestry, medicine, conservation. They are essential for understanding bioresources, biodiversity hotspots, disease vectors, everything. It's the fundamental language that allows biologists worldwide to collaborate and build knowledge effectively.
So as we finish up, let's leave you with something to think about. We talked about that profound realization. All living things today are related. Not just to each other, but to every organism that has ever lived on Earth. Given that deep shared history, that fundamental interconnectedness, what does that tell us about our own responsibility? How does it change our perspective on protecting the planet's amazing biodiversity and understanding our own small part within that vast web of life?